So we need to finish up by talking just about one environmental issue that's left, and that's sometimes called global warming. And actually a better term for it is climate change, but both words are usually referring to the same thing. So what is global warming? What does that actually, raise your hand. What does that mean? Raise your hand. Anthony?
When a pollution from things in the smoke and stuff, it since it makes the air hot.
Okay.
And the South Pole, like polar bears die.
All right, you're on the right track. Jake?
Like one example would be like if it's raining or it's really sunny out.
No. So global warming is just like what it says, basically. It's that the average temperature of the Earth is increasing over time as we study it, due to human activity.
Pollution.
What? So I've heard people say pollution. Does anyone know specifically what pollutant is responsible for the most effects of global warming? Olivia? What? Yeah, but a specific gas. A specific one cars do release. Correct? No? Comes from burning oil.
Like estrogen.
Carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is a gas that's released anytime we burn fossil fuels. And as we talked about already, we burn huge quantities of fossil fuels to support 7 billion people on Earth. And as we add more and more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, it has an effect. It causes the temperature of the Earth to increase. And as we study, scientists can study historical carbon dioxide levels. And when they do that, what they see is that since 1850, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has increased drastically. What happened around that time that would cause an increase in the production of carbon dioxide? Sydney? Explain it?
Industrial revolution.
Yes, the Industrial Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution is when humans first started really burning large quantities of fossil fuels, coal basically. Now we use oil and natural gas, but and that's why carbon dioxide levels have increased. And when we add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, it traps heat and the Earth becomes warmer. Okay. So why is this a big deal? So the Earth's a little warmer. Okay, we would like warmer temperatures sometimes. Why is it a problem though? Mary? Yeah, what would they be dying from? I mean, we're not talking like it's going to be suddenly 20 degrees warmer. It's smaller amounts, but Mary is correct that plants and animals can die due to some of these effects.
I know.
Olivia?
It's like melting glaciers.
Okay, one important thing, we'll look at this in a minute, is it's melting glaciers. As the Earth warms up, glaciers are big chunks of ice in the oceans. Ice caps are ice that lies at the top of land over in like Antarctica. And as the temperature of the Earth gets warmer, well, they melt. And that's a problem. Because that water from these ice caps, as they melt, that water goes into the ocean. And what happens to sea level? Yeah, it increases. And so if you increase sea level, it means there's going to be flooding of areas on the coasts.
Yeah, what causes hurricanes?
Well, we'll get there in a minute. We'll get there now. Because warm water, so hurricanes, the energy that forms a hurricane, it comes from warm waters in the oceans. And so obviously, if you increase the temperature of the ocean, you increase the energy of these storms. And so scientists believe that tropical storms and hurricanes are getting worse. They're becoming more intense because there's more energy for them because the ocean waters are warmer. Habitats change. And this gets to what Mary was saying, that the species that are in a certain ecosystem, they are adapted to those ecosystems. They're adapted to certain climates and temperatures and so forth. If the temperature starts to change, well, that interferes with that. Maybe now, obviously polar bears are an example people automatically think of. Polar bears are obviously adapted to living in cold conditions. They're adapted to living on the ice and the tundra. Well, if we reduce that and remove that tundra ecosystem, well, polar bears are not adapted to living in other areas. And it's not just animals and bears, it's lots of things. Plants are adapted to certain climate conditions. And if we change the climate, we change that. Disease. Mosquitoes that once, lots of the mosquitoes that we talk about when we talk about spreading disease were limited to the tropics because that's where these mosquitoes survive. Things like malaria. Well, as we warm up the earth, that allows these insects, these carriers of disease, to go farther and farther north. And we've seen this. We've seen disease-carrying mosquitoes start to be able to move into new habitats. And obviously that would affect people in those areas. This is a little graph that shows temperature. And what it does, it just sort of is a spiral going around each month of the year, and it's showing the deviation from the normal temperature. And as we go out farther, that means a warmer temperature. So again, you see that we're getting closer and closer up 1.5 degrees since that video started. I'll show you one more time.
I don't understand what's going on.
So it's just going around and it's showing how the temperature. So the closer to the middle, the cooler the temperature. So 1800s, 1900s, warming is starting. This line is starting farther and farther out, warmer and warmer. And then as we get towards, modern times, again, we see the warmest years on record, if you measure the average global temperature, have been in the last decade or so. Each year is getting warmer and warmer. Now, it doesn't mean that, people will say, well, if there's a cold winter, so you see, global warming doesn't really exist. This winter was cold, it snowed a lot. But climate change is not about just what happens one day or 1 week or even 1 month. It's the overall average temperature of the Earth. And that is certainly going up. Scientists know this for sure. And it's happening because of something called the greenhouse effect. So,
What happens if the yellow line just stays red?
it just means the temperature is continuing to increase. It's
What
not like it's not a set.
What happens if it reaches the level here?
What?
You know how it's like going in a circle?
That's not what it was
I
showing.
have a question.
So, how many people have been in a greenhouse?
Yeah.
Or the effect, yeah, it's hot, right? Or the effect's the same if you went to the store with your parents, you stayed in the car on a sunny day and the sun was shining in and the windows were up. Same thing. The sun shines in to the greenhouse or into the car and heats it up, but can the heat escape? No, it's trapped by the greenhouse, or it's trapped by the car, and so it heats up very quickly. Carbon dioxide in our atmosphere does the same sort of thing. As carbon dioxide builds up, it still allows the sun's energy to get to the earth. But then when the earth starts to release that energy, it gets trapped. You could think of carbon dioxide kind of as a blanket, and it keeps the earth warm. And as we add more and more carbon dioxide, it's like getting that blanket thicker and thicker. You stay warm with a blanket because it traps your body heat in close to you, so it can't escape. If it's hot, like it has been lately, in air conditioning, you might take the blanket off so that your heat from your body can radiate out and you can get rid of it. And so you don't use a blanket, or you use a thinner blanket. The thicker that blanket, the more it traps that heat. And that's what carbon dioxide does in our atmosphere. So as we add more carbon dioxide, we increase the temperature of the earth. Caleb?
Didn't someone kill their kid by leaving them in the car?
Sometimes, yeah, that happens. Happens with pets a lot. You're not supposed to leave pets.
That happened something my brother and his dad,
my dad, they were walking into the store, and when they went in, they saw a baby crying, and the doors were locked, and like the woman was in the store, and the baby was in there a couple months, and it
Oh,
was like, really hot, and they had to break the car window. And
Yeah, they do that sometimes. So when we look at some pictures, this is about glaciers and sea ice. So this is a picture from 1979 from a satellite. You can see this is the North Pole, where there's a lot of ice.
Oh.
And what you see is in 2005, if you compare, if you look at these areas especially, what you see is the ice is receding. Look at all the blue that's here. This is open water. That wasn't there, 30 years before. And one of the problems is ice is white. It reflects the sun's energy. Okay? When it melts and turns into ocean water that's darker in color, it absorbs more of that sun's energy. And that causes heating to happen faster, which causes more ice to melt, which causes it to happen more. So sort of that self-repeating process. Here's an interesting picture. This is two pictures taken from the exact same viewpoint, but obviously they are, almost 80 years later. So this is a glacier. That's covering the land here. This might have been in Alaska. And you can see in 1928, the glacier stretched all the way here. 2004, when you look at the exact same place, you can still see the mountains in the background are the same, but that glacier is completely melted and receded. It's all the way back here now, and it's continuing to recede. Obviously, it left in its path all that melted water, left a lake. But those glaciers are retreating, and obviously any animals, any plants, any species that are adapted to this sort of ecosystem are probably not going to be that well adapted to this ecosystem. And so that could result in species becoming extinct. Around the world, some of the largest cities in the world are on coastline because it's a good source of food. It's good for transportation and shipping and cargo. And so people it's nice to look at the ocean. So people tend to live on the coasts of various continents. But as sea level rises, what happens to the coastline? If you increase sea level, it covers the land, right? It floods the land. If you've ever been to Florida, you may recognize, is it real hilly and mountainous like our area? No, it's really flat. So this is like the worst case scenario. If global warming continues, if we don't do anything about carbon dioxide emissions, and all of the ice at the North Pole, South Pole, Greenland, all melts, sea level would rise quite a bit. Now this is definitely the worst case scenario. If it were to do that, this is what Florida would look like. There would be no more Florida. There would be some islands here. This is the previous coast. All the blue is flooded land. Okay? So you see all those areas, Myrtle Beach, if you ever went there, or Charleston, on the ocean, they'd be flooded. Miami, okay? All of those cities in Florida, New Orleans, over here, they would be gone. They'd be underwater. If you look here again, this shows North America, obviously. You can see the coastline, and you can see the outline of present-day coast here. Okay, and it's all those oceans would have flooded, all this area of Louisiana. That wouldn't reach us. New York City would be completely flooded. Boston, all those coastal cities in the Northeast, those beaches that you go to in Virginia and Delaware and Cape Cod and North and South Carolina, that would all be flooded because of this rising sea level.
Would we be okay?
We would not be flooded. Here you see South America, obviously. You can see previous coastline, these are the low-lying areas, they'd be flooded. Okay? So you could look at all the various continents and see, this is Antarctica. Again, Antarctica today, this is all ice, basically. This is what's underneath it, and basically all that ice would have been melted.
What about like Asia?
I don't know if I have a picture, but yeah, like Southeast Asia especially, areas where we have many small island nations, Indonesia, Southeast Asia would be, island nations would suffer from this. Because they're on an island, obviously surrounded by ocean, if you raise sea level, you flood huge areas. And those people obviously would have to find new homes to live in or find a new place to go.
Hawaii, right?
Hawaii would not be good either.
Oh, no, it was.
All right, any questions about climate change or global warming as we call it?
Can we put our packet away?
We're done with our
Can we go back to
notes.
that video